All right, this is introducing our first assignment. It's Unit 4. This is to actually use compositing that we were introduced to with our line art jumble in Exercise 1. This is using it as a portfolio project. And we'll learn a lot more about this next class as we really work on it. But the first thing you have to do is when you come into class on Wednesday, I want you to have an idea of what your project is going to be. And ideally, I want you to have a sketch of it, maybe even more than one sketch. So this project is teaching you about concept design and a particular type of concept design, which is setting or landscape design. So you're going to come up with a fantasy landscape. Maybe it's inspired by the theme you've been using so far. So I just used Popeye for 2 exercises. So a fantasy landscape that involves Popeye, right? Yeah, it would definitely include the ocean. Here we have kind of animation backgrounds. You know, they're colorful, they're weird. But what a concept landscape can have, right, is it can have anything that like makes the setting, but it can't have figurative elements. So as cool as this is, this, which is concept art, right? This is the setting, just the waves in the sky and the colors. But the seagulls, the sailboats, and then this boat with legs, those are all what are called figurative elements. We are not designing figurative elements for this. We are just designing the backdrop. So what are the limitations to your fantasy landscape? It cannot have things that should be moving in it when you look at it, right? So it shouldn't have figures. It shouldn't have working vehicles. It shouldn't have animals that are alive. What can it have? It can have broken down stuff that you wouldn't expect to move. It can have corpses. It can have bones. Anything that's part of the setting, right? Not a prop, not a figure. Be careful of open flame. Like you have a campfire. The campfire can glow red and that's fine. But if you have a flame on it, we would expect that flame to move and be figurative. Same thing with water. Of course you can have water, but if you have a waterfall in the foreground, we're going to expect that water to be moving, right? So try to think of ways you can make it look timeless so that then we can animate things on it later. By putting figurative stuff in it, it can look like, you know, we're obviously not seeing something believable. So imagine having this as your background and then having a creature like kind of pop in and out of the water while this is all holding still. That ruins the illusion because they accidentally put something figurative into the setting. Animation backgrounds are a wonderful way to think about this, and I talk about that in the assignment a lot. So it's a fantasy landscape. Some past examples. It starts with a sketch, so it needs to be based on our vision of it. And it also gives us our first question of the day, which isn't due for until next week, but gets you thinking about how digital compositing is different than digital collaging, how digital painting is different than traditional painting. And we'll talk more about this next class. But if you want to tackle it, please feel free. So this is what the project will look like. You'll post at least one sketch, and then you'll post your finished composite from high quality resources. This is how we go about it. You pick your theme, and you can do that actually right now. You can say, reply, put your name, and then say your theme. I'm going to use a Popeye-inspired fantasy landscape of a dock with broken ships. You know, shipwrecks. And it's going to be colorful. So now I already kind of have an idea of what I want, right? This can be futuristic, this can be sci-fi, this can be horror-based, whatever it is. Mine's going to be kind of more comedic and strange, kind of cartoony. But now I need to find photo references, like we did with our line art jumble, that are high enough resolution to be composited together into a print. And for this, we are going to use Pixabay as our primary source. Pixabay has royalty-free images. You'll notice I'm logged in, and you can create your own account if you want, but I'm going to show you how you can use it even if you don't. So if you go to pixabay.com, which is linked in the assignment, this is a Creative Commons open image resource like Google Images, but everything is free for you to use and high quality. And I'm going to put in colorful shipwreck. I'm going to skip, because I'm not logged in, I'm going to skip this top row, which is sponsored content, which is stock images you'd have to buy, to get to all the ones that you have access to, right? And what I'm looking for is just the kind of things they have. Like this is really useful. This is really useful. I'm going to right click just like we did in Google Images and say open link in new tab. I'm going to avoid these ones. You'll see if there's a little robot in the upper left-hand corner, they're AI generated. And generally, they're not going to hold up for what we're going to be doing to them. You can use them if you like, but just be wary. Ooh, that's beautiful and colorful. That's really nice. There's a lot more than I thought. Because people like to take photos of ships and then donate them to this site for free use. Okay. Ooh, that's perfect. I'm getting excited about this. Now, you're just finding things. You can start downloading them. This is how you download them. You click on download, and you want it to be at least 1,000 pixels in its smallest dimension. I'm going to go ahead and download the highest quality. Notice you don't even need to be logged in to download the highest quality. It goes to your downloads folder. I'm just going to do a few of these, and then I'm going to show you how you sketch. I know we're going a little bit over, but it will help. So don't try to find, 20 resources. Only try to find about 5 or so before you start sketching. Otherwise, you're going to be a slave to your resources. Then you're going to open up your resources. So I have them all here. And I'm going to start sketching. And I want you to use just your sketchbook and your pencils, but I'm going to demonstrate here by just doing it digitally. And if you are comfortable sketching digitally, and that would be best for you, that's fine. So I'm going to call this Karl Assignment 1 Sketch for the afternoon. FA 25. Okay. And the size doesn't really matter for my sketch. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. So pretend this is my sketchbook now. This is the outside of my sketchbook, like it's a spiral sketchbook. This is the spiral spine, right? This is how I want you to sketch. Do not fill the page. Can you repeat that for me? Thank you. A few of you still will, but I'm just going to tell you. Instead, draw boxes that are the shape of the landscape you want. So I'm going to draw one that's horizontal, one that's portrait format, taller than it is tall, or taller than it is wide. Now I'm going to look at my resources. I'm going to think, how can I build a landscape like this? And I want you to think in terms of foreground. So I'm going to show these kind of rocks and boards there, things that come off the corners. Here I'm going to put the ship in the foreground. So this is foreground, this is foreground. Think middle ground. Where's the eye like seeing in the middle? And I'm going to use this one for the middle ground, but I'll put it here. This big wreck on a beach. And then background, so that's middle. Background is anything in the far distance, right? Like these beautiful, that beautiful sunset, right? That is background. So let's see, I've got foreground here. My background's going to be this ship and this sunset on this horizon. So what's my middle ground for this? I want to maybe find it in other resources, like this. So what is my Come on, I should have downloaded. What is my middle ground for my vertical one? It is this one. There we go. It's like this spider web of the skeleton of a ship. And so that's going to take up the middle ground. Maybe I'll flip it. Maybe it comes over here. But it's all the water. So that's my middle ground. All right, if we look at the assignment, that's it. That's your homework. You're going to bring in the references that you save. You'll probably find other references too. You can email them to yourself, but they fit really nicely on an SD card or a USB card. And I want you to think when you're sketching about foreground, middle ground, and background. And the best way to practice this, you can sign out of Adobe and stuff, but I'm going to actually use FaceTime, which I never do, just to show you this exercise. Okay? This is how to understand foreground, middle ground, background. If you put your hand in front of your face, and you look through your fingers, so your fingers are blurry, but you see what's behind them clear, that's foreground and background. If you look at your fingers, you'll see that you focus on them, they're sharp, but what's behind them is blurry. That's foreground, background. Now, if you put a hand further out behind your other hand, and you focus on that hand, you are looking through the foreground to the middle ground, which is your other hand, and what's behind your other hand is the background. That's what's called 3 distinct layers of depth. That's what you want to create in an ideal concept setting. All of these have 3 layers of depth, but it's really only the midground focused ones that really make it expansive. All right, that is it. You'll also see examples of that in comic books and in picture books and in all kind of visual narratives. So, using Pixabay, finding interesting source material, and then sketching a vision based on that. These sketches are then going to be used as our blueprints for compositing together full resolution, very believable composites. And I'll end today by passing around an example of what this might look printed.